I'm joined in studio by entertainment writer Nene B. Tony. Also joining us on Zoom is Amiel Deborah. He's an entertainment and lifestyle blogger. Gentlemen, good morning to you.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning?
I was doing well until you asked me what I was using a brush for.
It was for your beard. We've clarified that.
Yeah.
Okay, this hairstyle, is it deliberate?
This hairstyle?
Yes.
It was deliberate from birth.
It was deliberate from birth.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. Amiel Deborah, good morning to you as well, if you can hear me.
Good morning.
How are you this morning?
Doing great. How about you?
I'm doing all right. I'm enjoying all the throwback music. And then, B. Tony, you chronicle the last decade in a very interesting way in your book. Everything that happened and the people who made it. And, you know, I've had a skim through the book, and it's brought back some interesting memories. There's lots of talk about, especially the music industry in Ghana, lots of comparisons with our neighbors. But they say if you want to know where you're going, it's essential that you
know where you're coming from.
Exactly, that you look back. What was it like for you chronicling the last decade and all of the ups and downs, all of the, you know, very explosive things that happened during the decade?
I wish I could say it was easy and fun, because it was easy and fun, but also it was kind of tiring, and because there are some people who were on the scene 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, who are no more on the scene. So I had to go back and find them, find their contacts, and sometimes it took some time. So it was not an easy experience for me, but I enjoy doing that because, you know, I'm 30 something years old now. So I was kind of very young when most of the things I wrote about happened. So I didn't have a first-hand experience of some of them. So hearing behind the scenes stories of maybe my favorite songs, my favorite movies, it was interesting for me. I enjoyed the process.
Okay, but how difficult or how easy was it to get the information that you wanted?
Some were very easy, especially the older artists. They were easy to talk to. They were forthcoming with information. The younger artists, not so much. They're kind of difficult to plow and get information out of.
Okay. Well, I also introduce Arnold Asamoah Bedu. He's an entertainment pundit. He's also joining us via Zoom. Good morning to you, Arnold.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I hope you're all right.
By the grace of God, I'm fine.
Lovely. And then maybe I'll come back to you. You say for the older artists, it was easier to get that information, but, you know, some of the younger ones were not as forthcoming. Why do you think that is?
I think, you know, the way fame works, fame is a drug. Jay-Z once said fame is the most addictive drug in this world, right? So usually once people are in their prime, you know, they have this aura around them where they feel like they're going to be that way forever. So, you know, they don't see the need to, you know, document what is happening now. They just want to live in the moment. So I think it's the fact that they may be hot now and they don't really care so much about what the future or the past may hold. I think that may be the issue. But for the older artists, for example, Miss Bell, I have kind of a personal relationship with her based on the fact that I've worked with her in the past. But it was easy to get Miss Bell because Miss Bell, when I was talking to her, you know, she understood the phases the industry have been through. And then she's been successful all these phases. But she understood that things change. So it's important to keep record of how things have been in the past.
Okay. Arnold, I'll come to you now. You're an entertainment pundit. What do you make of the comments by Nene B. Tony that some of the newer artists, it's difficult to get information from them. It's difficult for you to, as it were, tell their story, or difficult for you to get them to tell their story?
Well, for me, I think it's a level of activity. I will not put the blame on them for not availing themselves for interviews or for sharing records. They are active. I mean, if you compare them to the artists of the latter years, these guys are very active. They are playing shows, they are on tour, they are busy recording and all. And so the expectation for them to actually avail themselves at every time tea would be a little bit difficult. And so I sympathize with Nene B, but then I would also want to understand the terrain that these young artists are in now, because they are busy. And so for me, I think I'll give them a little slack and say their level of activity will not permit them to avail themselves anytime probably would want to interview them. So that's what I would say for that.
Okay, but it's not because, everybody thinks they're too famous to engage with pundits and the like.
Not necessarily. Yes, there could be situations where, every hot artist has some level of pride and arrogance in them. It helps them in their craft. But then I will not say, because what NNB has done is a laudable initiative for the industry, because over the period, one of our biggest problems has been record keeping and documentation. And these artists, they need it. They need somebody to actually document their achievements, their proceedings and all. And so I would not believe that they would not want to engage in NAB, probably because of their level of activity and their engagement. That's the most reason why they could not avail themselves effectively for such recordings.
Thank you for that, Arnold. Amiel Deborah is an entertainment and lifestyle blogger. He's also joined us on Zoom. Amiel, what do you make of this last decade and where we are now? You've been blogging for a very long time, and looking at the trajectory, did you think that Ghana music would be where it is now, given our history?
Well, I think I'm waiting to see how much has been captured by NNB, because it's been a very interesting decade. Lots of things have happened. In terms of the music itself, it's gone through a lot of changes. We've seen new styles, new people emerge, and we've had to compete more and more with sounds coming in from other regions as well. So it will be interesting to see how much of it has been captured. But the industry, the space we've experienced a lot. We've seen controversies. We've seen things happen for the first time. We've seen people pull out guns at the awards stage.
That's true.
We've seen people go to jail and come out. So there's been a lot. And for us who write, who produce content, it's always a thrill to go through all of this, so that it's not always talking about this person has released this. It makes the industry a bit more exciting, a lot more to talk about beyond just music or film. So it's been an interesting 10 years and more. And I really am looking forward to see how he captured this journey. Yes.
Now, Amiel, you talked about brandishing of weapons at, events and so on and so forth. I'll put you on the spot a little bit. For you in the last decade, what maybe 2 other incidents would you say stand out for you in our entertainment industry?
Well, in terms of theory, I like the fact that some artists have been able to be relevant and strong throughout the 10 decades. And I also like the fact that in this same space, a lot of new talents have emerged. Because sometimes we feel like the big ones will remain big forever and there's no opportunity for new ones to emerge. But we've seen it, and currently, honestly, we all can tell that our industry is being driven by this new blood, and it makes it very exciting for me looking at it from that perspective. In terms of other controversies, I think there are a lot more. Kwakesi was arrested, right?
That's right.
KKD was also arrested and put in cell for a bit. They went to court and all of that. So we've seen lots of controversies. I think this 10 years has been more scandalous, if I can say so. I don't know also if it's because there's a lot more eyeballs. The internet is ready to pick up everything.
That's right. Now we have everything at our fingertips. As soon as it happens, you and I, we have our phones. Amiel Deborah, you let us know that it's happening. You're in the thick of things. You're giving us a play-by-play. So I think that's also right, that now we have access to all of that information. In fact, the next 10 years, I think, will be even more scandalous. But Nenebi, you tell us about the last 10 years. Would you describe it as scandalous, as Amiel was saying?
It's scandalous because, I'm kidding, Amiel Deborah made it scandalous. Because in my book, in the chapter 10, I talked about how the internet has affected entertainment.
And in fact, if you're watching now, you can see some of the scuffle that happened at that particular awards ceremony. And you say this is very scandalous, and it was in fact scandalous.
Yeah,
Maybe the most
I was
scandalous
in the audience. And
oh, you were there on the day?
On a day, yes.
Okay, and it looked just as chaotic as we're seeing it now.
Okay, so what happened was, I don't like being in theater or in the audience when I'm at events. So I was actually outside. Vodafone had this red room where the VIPs were sitting, and actually I was there with somebody who works here, one of your bosses, and I was with him. And when this thing happened on the screen in the red room just went off. So I remember he asked me that I need to go inside and get his wife.
Okay.
So when this thing was happening, everybody was running away from it. I was running towards it because he was somebody I respect a lot. So I had to.
And same writer, bodyguard. Okay, we love it. I'll bring
Anyway, so I wanted to say something.
Right.
I jokingly said that Aldebra contributed to the decade being scandalous.
That's right.
In the chapter 10 of my book, which was talking mainly about the internet, I opened by talking about how Ameya Aldebra in particular introduced the concept of celebrity blogging in Ghana. And that introduction of celebrity blogging put focus on the private life of celebrities instead of just their art. Even though their private life was always somehow part of the news, graphic showbiz and the entertainment newspapers at the time tend to focus more on the art or be more balanced.
Right.
But when the internet came about and celebrity blogging became a thing, gossip became louder. So gossip became what people focused on more. And I think that contributed to, artists, even when they put out music, want to create some scandal around it so that people pay attention to even the art more.
And that's interesting. And we'll come to celebrity blogging as well. Arnold, I'm bringing you in here.
Yep.
Was that scuffle the most scandalous thing that the last decade has seen? And what do you make of all of that?
Well, I didn't want to focus on scandals or controversial issues in the last 10 years. But once you brought it up, yes, it was. Because the VGMA platform is the biggest entertainment platform we have on our calendar. And so for that to actually ensue, it made it one of the most controversial happenings in the last decade. But I would also want to focus on the gains or the positives in the last 10 years. And
sure.
I was zeroing in on two scenarios that really stuck out for me in terms of gains. One is Ebony. May her soul rest in peace. Ebony is on record to be the first female artist to win Artist of the Year for the VGMs. And
that's right.
Over the period, yes, we've been talking about how women are in the minority when it comes to all facets of our industry. And so for her to actually brace against all the odds and win Artist of the Year, it for me was a big achievement. Now, the second thing that really was significant in the last 10 years was Sarkodie's ability to go onto the BET stage and win the hip hop flow. For me, again, there were issues about Ghana and our inability to actually transport the Twi language. So for Sarkodie to actually come through the trenches and go to the international platform and win with the Twi language for me was also significant. So I think we should also focus more on the gains than the scandals.
Absolutely, and that's important. And you also chronicle all of that. Now let's bring it back to current times a little bit, and then we'll take a few steps back. You have artists like Black Sheriff. He has catapulted into stardom. His fans absolutely adore him. We know that without fans, it's difficult to propel yourself into stardom.
Yeah.
And you talked about how sort of the mania of fandom really helps artists. You talk about, for example, Shatta Wale having such a strong fan base.
Yeah.
And why is that important for any celebrity to connect with their audience, their fans, and the people that support their craft?
Yeah, so you're making reference to chapter 6 of my book, where I talked about how fandom had changed over the years,
and
right?
also in general, the importance of fans to the craft.
Yeah, so previously, the fans were not involved in the creation of the art itself, right? But again, with the internet, the fans have become more involved with every creation process. These days, when artists are in studios, they tweet, they Instagram themselves in studios. The fans can listen to snippets of the song and talk about whether they like it or not. And then even a Black Cherry's song, which is one of the biggest songs in the world now,
Yeah.
because it's on the global top 100 songs on Apple
right.
Music. He put out a snippet of the song earlier, and so there were fans around the song before it even came out. So things like that tend to propel the artist to higher heights, right? And even Black Sheriff seem to have a very active social media presence, and that way the fans seems to have a personal connection with him. Sometimes he posts funny stuff that the fans connect. So Black Sheriff feels like somebody who is part of you. You feel like you are part of a Black Sheriff story because maybe you heard First Sermon before everybody else in the world did, or you heard the song he put out before. Was it Money was the song he put out before First Sermon? So you knew him from the beginning, so you feel like you are part of it, right? And so the fans have become part of the artist. So it has become like, in the book I use the word cult, where the artist is the cult leader and the fans are part of the cult. So whatever the leader does is a reflection of what the cult is. So they are living vicariously through the artist. And the internet have made it easy. So I don't have to talk about what I have or don't have. I can talk about what Stonebwoy have, what Shatawale have, and then that makes me feel good as a person. And in the book I spoke with a psychologist who explained how it affects the psyche of the fans.
Okay, that's very interesting. I mean, I'll come to you on this one. Have you seen an evolution in the last decade in the way that fans interact with celebrities, in the way that fans support the celebrities that they love?
Absolutely. There's been a big sort of revolution. And when Nenebi was talking about my contribution to the space, when I started, yes, it became some sort of a hub for all that content, and social media was not so strong. And so a lot of the time, people had to look to platforms like myself to see what's happening. But then once social media became big, the celebrities were themselves using all these platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. They did not only make it easy for them to connect with their fan base, but also they had a voice to at every time sort of direct the narrative around what they were doing. So I would say again, the internet really heightened this fandom that we've seen, and sometimes to the point where we have some little battles between the fan armies. All of that sort of creates that excitement, that momentum that carries on the works of the artist. Yeah.
Now, if we look at the current entertainment space, if you could list, let's say, 3 entertainers you think have the most loyal fan base, who would you say that is?
Well, I think the big 3, in terms of music, Shatawale, Sarkodie, Stonebwoy. In fact, you'll be surprised, even EL, when his aliens get active on Twitter, they're very vociferous, if that's the word. So almost everybody has it. But I think in terms of following, in terms of always being loud and there are people fighting and we see it, I would probably say the BIM natives, the SM for Life people, and the SAC natives. They stand out. But we cannot also ignore the kind of support the likes of John Dumelo, Yvonne Nelson, Jack Appiah have. Yvonne is somebody who has been able to use her following to do a lot of things. Whenever she has premieres, she uses social media a lot. And when cinemas were really a thing, you realize that her premieres were always sold out and packed, and because she was using a lot of her audience to gain that. So this is what I would say to that.
Okay. Now, Arnold, I'll come to you again on this one. When we talk about longevity, and this is across the entertainment industry, what do you think are some of the ingredients that make for long-term success in this industry?
First of all, is the influence. How have you been able to influence your craft? and then the industry, and then you talk about the impact. Are you able to impact with your product? And then the following. Have you been able to amass a certain level of following? So the influence, the clout, the impact, these are significant elements in determining how you survive in the industry. The most important element is the fans or the following, because at the end of the day, even if your relevance is dwindling, you would also have to depend on that following to survive. That's how come you have an artist like Daddy Lumba. His level of activity cannot be compared to the likes of Sarkodie, Shatawale, and Stonebwoy. But then anytime he drops a project, he has a loyal following that ensures that he survives. I mean, if I'll be a little bit blunt, Sarkodie, Shatawale, I mean, they are not as hot in quote unquote like a Black Sherif, but because they've been able to amass a dedicated, loyal following, they are still surviving. They are still in the game, because anytime they drop a project, anytime they are in any event, the loyal fans are there to support. And so to actually be able to survive and have some longevity, you need to have a dedicated and loyal following. Once you have that, you survive for as long as possible.
Arnold, you say Sarkodie is not as hot. RIP to your mentions. Check your Twitter.
I know he's used to that.
This segment.
I know he's used to that.
He's used to that. And
Yeah.
you know, the fans, they're very, very active.
Yeah.
But then
they don't want to hear anything that seems negative.
That's
What
right.
Arnold said wasn't negative at all. But definitely some people are going to take it that way.
Oh, of course. You know, they need something to do. They're loyal fans, you know, after all. But when you were chronicling and getting information, you know, about our various entertainers as concerns longevity, what are some of the things that you found run across the different entertainers who have sustained their craft this long? Okay,
so there is something let me use Samini. Samini wrote the foreword for my book, and I've been working with Samini since my first year in the industry. I worked with Samini at different levels, on his management team, on his PR team, on different levels, right? So that's an artist I know very well, right? So Samini, before 2013, was able to blend being a guy who was for the elite and also for the masses. Right, and so people used to attend Samini's show at the stadium. I remember when he brought Movado to Ghana, the stadium was filled because the street felt like Samini was one of them, right? So, but Samini doesn't live in the streets. He came from there. He grew up in Dansoman, but he now lives at a posh neighborhood, right? So even though he was from the streets, at a point he was no longer considered a street guy. And so when Shatawale came on the scene in 2013, right, Samini's street cred became questioned. So there were two things Samini could have done. He could have leaned into, you know, trying to fight for the street again, and it was more likely he was going to lose because people saw Shatawale as the guy from the street, because Shatawale always talked about he living in Nima and all that. Samini didn't do that. So Samini did what Samini could have done. He started putting out songs that, like My Own, songs like Oba, songs that appealed to you know, a more, you know, elite class, you know. He leaned more into that side. And I think that the fact that Samini leaned into that side helped him, you understand? Because then he was no longer fighting in the fight that he knew was eventually going to win. And then that solidified him, and then he was able to get hit at a time when I don't think anybody who was out the time Samini was out is as relevant as Samini is. Because he was able to understand that people have to see you as being authentic. And Samini being a street person didn't feel authentic.
Right.
Him being who he is now, a rich person who lives in a rich neighborhood, felt authentic. And you know, women love Samini because of his looks, so he leaned more by doing more of the love songs.
It's true. He is very handsome. But Kwakese says that he is the king of the streets. What do you make of that? And I think, Arnold, you'll want to weigh in on that as well after.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of years ago, Kwakese ruled the streets. I mean, Kwakese could not walk a distance in the street without being mobbed. It was that narrative until the Shatawale came over. and took over that title. And so, yes, Kwakese used to be the king of the street. Kwakese was huge. Kwakese is 2008 VGMA Top Most Award winner. I mean, so at the time, it was Kwakese could actually stop a show. Kwakese and Fennec Autry, I mean, may he so rest in peace. They would actually halt a show from happening. So he was that hot at the time until a certain Shatawale came in. And so it's normal. I mean, when you are in this industry, you cannot stay at number one for a long time. And so it was only fair and appropriate that somebody else would come take him off his spot. And so if Kwakese says he was king of the street, that's a fact. And I'm sure you recorded that in your book as well. He was that hot at the time. And so there's no dispute about the fact that Kwakese used to be the ruler of the street.
Well, Arnold, you say used to be. He says he is still
I was
the
about
king
to come there,
of the streets. What do you make of that? He says this is current.
Well, yes. If we are talking about the
I think Kwakese is the only person who still have that title, king of the street. I don't think anybody has ever called himself king of the street. So he's still king of the street.
If you are talking about the title, then of course he coined the title, and so he can still lay claim to it. But then if you are talking about on the ground as to who actually owns the street, who would walk on the street and be mobbed extensively, I mean, that's Shatawale. That's no more Kwakese. No disrespect to Kwakese, but he had his time.
Again, Arnold, RIP to your mentions. I mean, I'm bringing you back into this conversation. As Arnold mentioned, Kwakese will be walking, the streets of Accra and beyond. And, it's difficult because the fans want to get close to him. Who do you think has that star power now? Who is pulling that sort of crowd and that sort of reaction?
For me, I tend not to like the conversation around street and all of it because most of the time people don't try to make any meaningful impact.
Yeah, I mean, I say DB, so there's that.
No, but like I'm saying, I think currently Black Sheriff probably is occupying that space.
Has he taken Kwakese's title?
Well, I don't think he's going for a title. He's just living his life, his reality. And the truth is that people on the streets are responding to his music, his personality. So I think there is what is on the grounds and there's what people would like to claim. A certain person calls himself dancehall king and doesn't do so much dancehall.
R.I.P.
Well, yes, exactly.
When it comes to titles, you can pick what makes you look cool and supreme. But always, there's also, like Arnold said, there's what's on the grounds and all of that.
Yeah.
What Jay-Z once said when 50 Cent put out his first single, How to Rob. That wasn't a big single, but remember he called all the artists on Rockefeller and told them that 50 Cent is coming. They should be wary of him. If they have anything, they should put out either before 50 Cent put out this album.
Right.
And then 50 Cent put out this album, it shut down everybody. So artists who are hot know when somebody is coming.
Right.
So and they know sometimes it's inevitable. But then the thing about, I wanted to go back to Kwakese, right?
Right.
Mothers loved Kwakese.
Why
and
is
I
that?
found it very interesting. I don't know why. Because Ghanaians are very conservative.
That's true.
And Kwakese didn't look like somebody mothers who want their children to model their life after.
Right.
But mothers loved Kwakese. And to date, I still wonder why. I think I even asked him before when I interviewed him.
What
and
did he say?
He didn't give any specific answer. It was like, he's the king of the streets. So that's why they love him.
That's why they love him.
Yeah. So I'm always wondering why. I still haven't figured out yet. There have been a lot of researches around why certain artists connect and some don't.
Right.
And no answer have been found yet because it's more of an emotional thing. And emotions are things that we can't really explain.
That's true. And you see that with Black Sheriff's new song.
Yeah.
There are people who strongly connect with it and they don't know why. It just has that certain something, the it factor. It's just there.
It's just there,
But talking about the last decade in entertainment, we can't do that without talking about the Ghana-Niger connection.
There's a whole chapter in my book about that.
There's a whole chapter about that. And in fact, the influence that the two countries have had on each other is undeniable. Listen to any Nigerian song these days, and what do you hear? Odoyewu,
I think
Wache, Sheko, and the rest.
VIPs, what's the name? Hong Kong is tired. It has been sampled by too many Nigerians.
You say they need to retire that
They need
one.
to find new Ghanaian song to sample.
But you take us all the way back, and it's very interesting to get that history of that connection.
How that
between,
relationship started.
Yes, Ghanaians and Nigerians. A decade on, what do you think has changed in terms of our connection with our brothers and sisters?
Okay,
from
so
the past
in
2,
my
3,
book,
4?
TikTok said something, right? I interviewed him, and he used an analogy. Like you have a mango tree in your house, and you don't eat mango, or you don't appreciate mango, and so the fruit just falls down on the floor, and then it gets rotten, and then do nothing with it. And somebody comes around and see that the mango is actually a nice fruit, and they start plugging the mango. And then they take the mango home and they are eating it. You don't eat mango, but you are angry that other people are eating mango. You understand? And his analogy was saying that and even before now, Nigerian music have always been influenced by Ghanaians. Fela Kuti's music is heavily influenced by Ghanaian music. So Nigerians have always looked to Ghana for direction when it came to creativity, even in the film. So Ghanaians have until now never really made effort to make claim of the sound Ghanaians created. I believe that Afrobeat is a Ghanaian creation, right? I believe that, but Ghanaians have not made efforts to make claim of that until now that we are, and even now that
Afrobeat is a Ghanaian product. It's originated from Ghana.
Yes, because Afrobeat is a fusion of Nigerian sound, right, and Ghanaian and Western sound. But the Nigerian sound that is the most popular Nigerian sound in those days was heavily influenced by Ghanaian music. There's a whole book by Professor John Collins on that, on her life and her influence and all that. So there's that. And then there's the modern Ghanaian sound, which is influenced. And then the Western influence comes from, I didn't want to say this, but I feel like Ghanaians are better at lyricism than Nigerians, even though they may have better at sounds, right?
Right.
So Ghanaians connected more with hip hop from the beginning. So Ghanaians embraced the Western sound earlier than the Nigerians did, right? So the Western sound that Nigerians are, are influencing their music now. I think they got that idea from Ghanaians.
You think Ghanaians do that merge better than our Nigerian counterparts?
Ghanaians do that. Ghanaians have always embraced that merge from the beginning.
We've always been the front runner in that. I mean, I'll bring you into this one. Would you say in the last 10 years, the Ghana-Niger connection has gotten stronger, or has it gotten weak?
Let me answer this before you come.
Okay.
It has gotten stronger in one direction, that Nigerians have benefited 90% than we have.
And we've only benefited
like
10%. I mean,
it's an abusive relationship.
From what you've seen in the last decade, we benefited far less than Nigerians.
Yes, I will agree with Nenebi that Nigeria seems to have benefited a lot more. But I think it's just how we are set up as Ghanaians. We sometimes assimilate things that are from outside quicker, and our space has made it easy for them to come and be heard in our space more than it has been for us to be heard there. But then again, you should also understand, if you go to Nigeria, there are perhaps 1 million artists struggling to get their time, their airtime, and there may not even be space for Ghana there as bonus. Whereas when it comes to us, most of the time it's about, at every given time, about 20 artists who are shining, and we are giving them all the attention. So there's always that room for us to add the Nigerians to it.
Right.
But I mean, things are changing. We're realizing that with strategic and clever collaborations, we'll be able to make it in that space. We've seen it happen in recent times. I mean,
is that going to happen soon?
Well, yes, we saw it with Jackie and is it Omale?
Omale, that collaboration, yes.
Yes,
even Black Sheriff.
Boy and Sheriff, and
That's
obviously
true.
is doing for Black Sherif, even in the Nigerian space. So we have to be tactical about it, and we shouldn't see it as a fight. I think it should be symbiotic, and we should find ways to both benefit from that relationship.
Thank you for that, Amiel. Arnold, I'll come to you on your final thoughts. If you can tell us in 30 seconds or less, what do you make of the Ghana-Niger connection, if it's getting better, if we need to be tactical, as Amiel is saying?
Well, it is getting better. And yes, the Nigerians have gained over the period, but who do you blame? I mean, you need to give them credit for actually understanding the business and taking advantage of it. So as Ghanaians, we also need to really understand the system, the dynamics and the intricacies of the industry, and wade into their industry and make gains. Once we do that, like they said, the collaborations are going on steadily, but then we need to understand the other elements of the music business, publishing, distribution, and all this stuff. If we only are excited about the performances, we will lose out. These Nigerians have been able to engage. They've been able to fix themselves in places. They have high-profile persons in record labels, into publishing companies, into marketing companies. And I feel going forward, Ghanaians should also fix themselves in such areas to improve our craft.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Alfred Arnold.
We forgot to mention Xylophone Media. Oh.
What are
Gentlemen, thank you so much, Arnold Asamoah Bedu, entertainment pundit. We were also joined by Amiel Deborah, entertainment and lifestyle blogger. And Enebi, also, thank you so much for your time this morning. And thank you for chronicling everything that happened and the people who made it happen. I hope that you'll be chronicling the next decade.
I'm looking at probably chronicling individual artists who I believe have had very huge impact on the industry.
That'll be exciting. We're definitely watching that space. But again, this is a new day on TV3. We've been talking about the last decade in entertainment. We still have so much more in store for you. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.